Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Can we get serious now?
One thing that did happen during the 60s was some music of an unusual or experimental nature did get recorded and did get released. Now look at who the executives were in those companies at those times. Not hip young guys. These were cigar-chomping old guys who looked at the product that came and said, I don't know. Who knows what it is? Record it, stick it out. If it sells, all right. We were better off with those guys than we are now with the supposedly hip young executives who are making the decisions of what people should see and hear in the marketplace.
Success in the music business begins with a dream, a vision. This podcast will give you, the listener, the insight and tools to turn that vision into a reality. Meet the industry professionals who work day by day behind the scenes, helping to make those dreams come true. Welcome to the business side of music.
On the show with us today in San Diego, California, is Joe Lamond, who is the president and CEO of NAMM. For those of you that don't know what that acronym is, it is the National Association of Music Merchants. If you are a retail music store owner or a musician, you know about NAMM. It's been around since 1901. It's a global not-for-profit trade association representing more than 10,000 manufacturers and retailers of musical instruments, professional sound, and live event production products. Since 2001, Joe has led the talented team, and I can say they're talented because I've worked with a few of them, and they're amazing. He's worked with the talented team at NAMM to achieve this mission through what the association likes to call its circle of benefits business model, which reinvests the proceeds of its successful trade shows into grants, scholarships, scientific research, industry promotions, and public and government relations programs. Joe, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bob. Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
We're glad to have on the show. I think I attended my first NAMM show was probably in 1983 in Anaheim, California. And I remember it distinctly as being this ginormous cacophony of sound. And it really hasn't changed much, has it?
You know, it's really interesting. You know, we hadn't prepped this at all. That was my first show, too.
Really?
Wow. January of 1983. I was a employee of a store in Sacramento, California called Drum and Guitar City. And a small store, but the owner sent two of us down to the NAMM show that year, my very first. And I agree with you. It was overwhelming in its scope. And again, for a young person, you obviously were very young too, for us to have our eyes opened to the industry, the scale of it, you know, all those companies that we had never heard of before, making things we had never seen before. I just remember it funny, all these shows that I've helped produce afterwards, I never want to forget that feeling. And I've always thought about that first person attending for their very first time. And can we still make it as magical as what I felt, and probably you felt too on that very first one? It's so funny that it's almost been one of the guiding signposts for us, is that first time attendee, knowing that they will remember, as you just have, the first show.
Let's back up a little bit, though. Before you got involved with NAMM, and actually, I guess before you got into the music store scene, you were actually a drummer. You were performing with Tommy Tutone?
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Number 56 on the VH1 One Hit Wonders, which is, I think, something to be proud of. Look, I've looked at some of the previous wonderful guests you've had on this podcast, and I think, if anything, I am a product, like so many of those others that you've interviewed, that this industry is made up of people with multiple skills who do multiple things, who find themselves in different places throughout their career. And the only guiding post, the center of it all, is our love of music. And so, yeah, you find people like me who were drummers in bands or worked retail. I hung speakers as an installer. I was a tour manager, a production manager. Yeah, try and curve that on your high school guidance counselors, trajectory. Let's do a personality test on anyone in the music products industry and see where they belong. I wasn't IBM. I wasn't on the path for Deloitte and Touche, management school. So, but we find our way, right? And we all find our way by doing these various things. As a drummer, did I learn how to, as Tommy's tours got a little smaller, not to be all Spinal Tap-ish, but I found myself doing other things like helping manage the tours. I would advance the tours, and then I'd get up and play. And then at the end of the night, I'd go to the club owner or the promoter, and I'd settle up, and I'd count the cash, and I'd go back and pay everybody. Still in my performing clothes, And then I found out, wow, you're kind of wired for a little bit of business. So I went into the music store business. Okay, well, that's kind of cool. I organize large events. Next thing you know, I'm working at NAMM. And so each one of those skills transferred to another, although at the time I had no idea. And I think every one of your listeners is probably in the same boat. They're learning things, what they're doing right now that may change, or they find out what their personal wiring is, their personal kind of superpowers are. And next thing you know, all my friends have moved around, and some are running companies now. Some are still performing. I just love to see where all my friends from that era are today, but we're all still in music, all of us. And I think that's the core of all. And we found our way to have a thriving career and a life that's worth looking back on with pride, that we followed our passion, and we had a life in music. So I am definitely, if I ever went back, I should go back to my high school guidance counselor and say, you got that one wrong. I was going to be a forestry ranger. I actually went to forestry school first.
Yeah.
Yeah, same here. I got in the insurance business, and that lasted for about a minute and a half. I know exactly what you're saying. How did you get involved with NAMM?
I always wanted to be a drummer, right? I mean, that was the goal, was to be in the Beatles, but they already had someone. But I wanted to be a drummer. I moved to California from Western New York. And, I had gone to school. So I went to State University of New York, got a business degree, because my parents said, you got to have something to fall back on. That's the traditional. And I moved to Sacramento with, whatever change I had in my pocket. And I knew I had something to fall back. I had to have something to fall back on, like at least have rent money. So I went, what a lot of people do, I went and applied for a job in all the music stores around town. And I got a job at Andy Penn's Drum Guitar City. So I would work in the store at night and then play and worked up in bands, and ultimately got to the point where I was working in stores, and then went on tour for 3 months. And the store owners were always like very flexible. I was very lucky that, two things coincided, but that's how I went to NAMM as a manager of a small music store in 1983. I was 21 years old, and so we did different things to pay the rent. And that was for me. I found a way to work in a music store. Little did I know that I went to that first NAMM show in 1983, that from 2001 on, I'd actually, have the responsibility of producing them.
I think maybe an understatement would be as the NAMM show has grown exponentially every year. The few times that I've gone, I haven't made it every year, but the few times that I went, both in the Anaheim show and the Nashville Summer Trade Show, the number of manufacturers that were there always seemed to be bigger and better. And I think we have an industry that I would hope that is at least recession-proof. What's your standpoint on that? Or pre-pandemic, were the companies still seeing growth in their respective industries?
Collectively, 2020, the January 2020 show was the largest show in NAMM's history by all our key performance indicators. Number of companies, the diversity of instrument companies and sound and lighting. We grew over time, incorporating event technology into our. Basically, I looked at it as, I use the phrase crossroads. NAMM wanted to be the crossroads of all the industry. We felt it would be good for the industry to have everybody come together, whether you're in school music or in, a live sound or touring or in a software company. We felt the more people would come together to talk about the future, talk about new ideas, new ways to make music, was going to make every segment stronger. So that's why we came up with the kind of vision of this crossroads. And I think January 2020 was the high point of that vision of crossroads. They were growing together. Most all segments, live music was growing, school music was growing. We were experiencing good, steady growth for the whole industry writ large. And I think that's the tricky part for us to sometimes understand, is that this is a very diverse industry. Like I say, there's people who in a new basketball arena install speakers. That's technically part of our industry. There's all these podcasters and all this gear. That's part of our industry. A recorder, fourth grade for elementary music program that has the recorder is part of our industry, as is, every software developer. And so it's a very diverse industry, but that was the idea of bringing them all together. The pandemic, obviously, in January of 2020, did any of us see it coming 6 weeks later? No, not a clue. We should have, maybe in hindsight, but we didn't. So the impact of the pandemic is still obviously being felt. We're here in March of 2022, and it's not nearly over here and in parts of the world that, it won't be over for some time. If you were in the business that related to home music making, anything you could do as a hobby, guitars, ukuleles, digital keyboards, anything involved with computer communication, Teams, Zoom, microphones, interface, cabling for home school. All the schools were home. Musicians started making music at home. Studios went from large, the home studio market was already growing, but it exploded. If you're on that side, your biggest problem in the last 2 years, other than keeping everyone safe and your loved ones safe, was supply chain challenges. There's just so much demand. If you're involved in live events, any place where people came together physically, you were in probably the worst place you'd ever been, imaginably the worst place. And that includes, school music, and schools were sent home. It's, very difficult. So from a NAMM perspective, I saw two different worlds emerge completely with gradients along those two worlds. But you could look at, there was two worlds that came out of the pandemic. We're just starting to get some clarity as it all comes back, but it's really too soon to tell. But I think in June, we had to move our show. I haven't moved the show in 100 years. So, all of us had to make some crazy, crazy decisions through all, as did our members. But as to the long-term effect yet, I still believe it's too soon to tell.
You brought up a valid topic of conversation here, and that's the moving of the Winter NAMM Show. Every year in Anaheim, it was known as Winter NAMM. It was always in January. And now it's taking place in June 3rd, 4th, and 5th, to be exact, in Anaheim, which, as you said, when was the last time it moved? Because of that, we're now, I don't know if negating is the right word, but Nashville, which has always been the Summer NAMM Show, I guess it's going away this year. Is the Winter NAMM Show going to just become the NAMM Show and stay in that slot? Or what are the plans for 23 and 24? Or have you guys even discussed that far yet?
No, we haven't. It's a great question because, this is, it's trying to galvanize a global, we had 102 countries. Oh, no, we have 102 countries of members. We had 128 countries come to the NAMM Show in 2020. So we're trying to balance a lot. But to me, the show I always believed it belongs in January. First of the year in our cycle, holiday selling is still a very important time for our industry. So new product introductions, the ability to forecast and plan for the year and to get a sense of where the year is going. January was the right spot. So I had to take a step back, we all did, and look at this as an arc. It's like the hero's journey, right? Everything from Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, Wizard of Oz, the hero's journey, right? So the hero journey on this one and the thought process, and I love to share this because we just released it. So your listeners will be hearing it for the first time, like a lot of others. January of 2020, high mark, 120 years. That was our 120th anniversary of that show. Really well done. Again, for our members too, right? The membership launched into 2020 with real strength and enthusiasm. Then the pandemic hit. We had to cancel 2021. California just wouldn't even allow any gatherings. It just wasn't permitted. So we went virtual and created this Believe in Music event, which was actually a tremendous learning experience. And it literally had 185 or 186 countries participate. So we found a new way to reach more broadly through virtual. And yay us, because we, like a lot of us, we probably wouldn't have done that had we not been forced to. So canceling 2021, that means we had to look at 2022. And last summer, a show the size of NAMM has to really be ready to load in 6 months out. It's done. It's baked, fully baked at 6 months out, the amount of logistics. So that put us in August of last year. That's when Delta hit. And we were all ready for January of 22, and then Delta hit. No one even mentioned Omicron yet. So we had to really make a quick decision in August of 2021. We cannot do January of 22. It's just not possible. So we have two choices: cancel it completely or try and get this huge facility to open up again for us at another time. They found us dates in June. We took them. We said, we're not going to go 2 full years without the industry gathering in Southern California. So that moved us to June of 22. We want to get back to January, but we felt maybe January of 23, there'd be another variant. Maybe it's too soon. Let's split the difference and call it April. It's a bridge. So April of 23 is where the show's going to be in Anaheim. That's the bridge year. And then 9 months later, we come back to January, our home, in January of 2024. So it's an arc. 2020, yes. 2021 canceled. 2022 moved to June. 2023 to April. 24, yes, we're back again. So that is the arc of what the pandemic, these are all pandemic related decisions. And that is the arc of the pandemic on our large event, the NAMM Show. So now what's going to change in the middle of that or in between that is, probably a lot. The world's changed completely, and we're going to have to change our style. Will people still feel comfortable traveling? How much of the virtual event will we put on top of the NAMM Show, which we're going to do a lot. We've learned that we're going to stream a tremendous amount of the NAMM Show for those countries that can't come or people who just don't feel comfortable traveling yet. So it's a hero's journey. We're in the middle of it. And it's a very exciting time if you let go of any type of previous anchors, it's a great time to be throwing yourself into the idea of change and innovation and transformation. It's a terrible time if you're really stuck in your old ways. So I'm trying to do the former and less of the latter.
Yeah. Where does this leave Nashville at this point? Is that even on the radar, or is that something that's just going to be on the back burner for now?
Well, we've got to get back to January, right? So yeah. I think we know there's going to be nothing in Nashville in 22, but I'm working on an idea for 23, which I think is going to be a really fun idea for the industry in July of 2023, but not quite ready. It's not quite soup yet. I'm still mixing with the recipe a little bit, but yeah, we'll be back in Nashville in July of 23 in some form.
On the show with us today, Joe Lamond, who is the president and CEO of NAMM, which is the National Association of Music Merchants, who will be hosting their annual show after a 2-year hiatus due to COVID, which will be held this June 3rd, 4th, and 5th at the Convention Center in Anaheim, California.
This is your boy DC, the brain supreme of Tag Team, and you're listening to the business side of music. Whoop, there it is.
You're listening to the business side of music.
Hi, everyone. I'm Larry Butler, and I want to send you a free digital copy of my new book, The Singer-Songwriter Rulebook, 101 Ways to Help You Improve Your Chances of Success. That's right. Everything you need to know to launch your career as a singer-songwriter, all based on my 40 years in the live performance arena. And believe me, I've seen it all. In my book, you'll find the 10 things you have to deal with before even thinking about becoming a singer-songwriter performer. You'll also learn about the 5 things every singer-songwriter can do this weekend to make their live show better. 5 things I can guarantee that you are not doing already. Plus, there's tips on songwriting and staging, photo and video shoots, publishing, merch, dozens of other topics. All written for people who don't particularly like to read. And again, it's free. Just go to the Business Side of Music website homepage and look for my book cover. Click on it, and a free digital copy of my book will be yours. I'm Larry Butler, and I approve of this message.
Whether you consider yourself a musician or not, music is all around us, and it affects our everyday lives. Whether it's background music influencing our shopping habits in a store, organ music adding the vibe to a baseball game, or a playlist convincing us to keep going on that last mile of a run. I'm Mindy Peterson, host of the podcast Enhance Life with Music, where we take a holistic look at music's benefits through the lens of science and medicine, entertainment, and business. You can find me and Enhance Life with Music at mpetersonmusic.com/podcast or wherever you get your audio.
You're listening to the business side of music.
The number of attendees, and we talk about, of course, the music stores and the manufacturers and all of their representatives. There's also another component, and that's a lot of the listeners on our show, which is the musician. It is one of the hottest tickets to try and get into the NAMM show. And it's not easy. You really have to, there has to be a reason as a musician for you to get into this gigantic convention, this trade show. How many people all told typically attend Winter NAMM in Anaheim? And of course, obviously, let's look at 2020 as the benchmark. What was the number of attendees that year?
Our registration was 116,000.
116,000.
Yeah, I mean, think about that, though, in a way that as a member organization, these are members who have allocations of access of NAMM show passes. And it's made up of their workers, their guests. I remember back in the Henry Steinway days, the idea of the NAMM show, there was always an employee badge and a guest badge so you could bring your spouse. It's a big trip. Sometimes people would bring their significant other. So the guest badges today, while they had traditionally been used for your spouse, they get used to, hey, I'll get my favorite musician in, or people who just, that's how a lot of that happens, is the guest badges. But to me, it means that somebody thought you were cool enough to get the badge. A NAMM member blessed you, Yeah, and so that's kind of the idea that that's the kind of, other than those who are literally working in the booths, with the manufacturers, or there for a music store, buying for their store, or, specifying for their installation or their outfitting their next tour, the next Dave Matthews tour, there's road managers that are specing, I want that console, I want those mics. Other than that, the others that kind of come in, you could say are the artists or the recording people. And I view them as important as anybody there. Honestly, I really do, because they're key influencers, like the media, the bloggers that are there. And I've heard an interesting thing about manufacturers bringing gear quite often to the show that's 98% done. Some new technology or some new instrument, and it's just about done, but not all the way done. And then you get all these people looking at it saying, what if it did this? Oh, just if we do this. And they take them back and they tweak them just a little bit more. And then when they finally go into production, it's perfect. And so in a think tank like that, it's, again, those attendees that are helping manufacturers improve their products, create new products, get whole ideas for new, segments of products. Again, I don't view it as an us and them. I think there's an ecosystem of everyone involved. And here's how I can articulate the best. As a drummer, I definitely think of things in simple 4/4 terms. I'm not good. I could never play. And yes, I love Bill Bruford, but I could never play like him. So I think they're very simple. Here's how I view the NAMM attendee, who I think is vital to the industry. If you make your primary income making music and sound products, selling music or sound products, or using music and sound products, you're part of the NAMM family. And that means the traditional manufacturers that we all know and love, music stores that I grew up in, now online stores, or through Reverb, or all these, and music teachers and touring professionals and recording studio engineers. I think they are all vitally part of our ecosystem, and we either live or die together. That's how I look at it.
With your leading this organization for 2 decades now, what's your best memory along the way that's affected you personally during that tenure?
A lot of people think we talk about the NAMM Show a lot, and there's, nothing but memories there, whether it's touring Ray Charles around before the show opened on a Saturday morning in a golf cart. Well, Ray's got his coffee cup and I've got my coffee cup, and Ray says, here, hold my cup for a second. And I smell his coffee cup and realize that ain't coffee in there. And this is at 9:00 on a Saturday morning. I mean, there's all the show memories that we'll never forget. But honestly, what the show does for us is a vehicle to go all year round and try and promote music and music education. So, one of my best memories will be with Sesame Street, that we did a very large national program with, going to Capitol Hill with Elmo and testifying in front of an education committee for the value of music education. Literally, Elmo next to me in an Armani suit, while Kevin Clash, who was the actor who created Elmo, underneath a table, and Elmo and I talking to this dais of elected officials about Elmo saying why he hopes by the time he gets to kindergarten, there's a music program for him. You can't make that up. The fact that we were able to move the ball down the field on music and arts education funding and to continue to do that year after year. But the idea that that's NAMM's real passion. The shows are business. I love them. But the real passion is, again, drummer, 4 things. MSFQ. No one knows what that means, right? MSFQ. Our industry's real job is to get more to start playing and fewer to quit playing. We do that, and there's no war in Ukraine. We do that, and things get simpler, more to start playing music and fewer to quit. So that's the work that I really have enjoyed, and the memories I have all year round of doing that around the world. But yeah, testifying with Elmo, having that opportunity. And I guess the photos of that went, viral around the world. This is in 2000. This is a while ago, but still the early stages of viral photos and videos, it was around the world within 24 hours. It's kind of fun.
On the show with us today, Joe Lamond, who is the president and CEO of NAMM, which is the National Association of Music Merchants. If you're interested in attending the NAMM show this year, you can sign up at registration.namm.org. That's the site to register to attend this year's NAMM Trade Show, which is June 3rd, 4th, and 5th in Anaheim, California.
Hey, this is Matt Lutz from Music Benefactors. Check out my episode on the business side of music.
You're listening to the business side of music.
Hey, I'd like you to check out my buddy John Adams' company, Money Concepts. As a musician, you have a dream. That vision is what success looks like for you. Though it's not only about the money, money is absolutely part of it. Whether you've been extremely successful or you're just striving to maintain a regular cash flow, you do need a plan. Money Concepts can help you develop a customized plan to achieve the financial stability and the success you want. For over 40 years, Money Concepts has been providing holistic financial planning services to the individuals, families, and business owners. As an independent firm, Money Concepts and their associates are committed to always represent the best interest of their client. It's really about a committed, benevolent interest in them personally. This independence, coupled with that committed, benevolent interest, means that they represent you, the client, not a product supplier. It's not about selling products. It's about helping you achieve success. To learn how this can benefit you, contact my buddy, John Adams, with Money Concepts at 737-867-9309. That's 737-867-9309. You can also email John at jadams@moneyconcepts.com.
You're listening to the business side of music.
I grew up in a time when you had music programs in elementary school, the recorder in fourth grade, and then you would advance to the next instrument, which for me was trumpet, and then I eventually transitioned into string bass in orchestra in junior high and high school. That seems to be sadly lacking these days. What needs to be done to get that back into the schools? Is that something that can be done?
It's a life's work, for one thing. And I think many people would be surprised how robust it can be and is in many places, including Nashville. You have, I think, a system where everyone from fourth grade on has access to a music and arts program. But that is because of the dedication of many, many people in your community, including the Country Music Hall of Fame and the school districts and the mayor. You've had a lot of support there. We've got places in Arizona where the thriving music programs aren't the ones we know, but they're mariachi programs. We have the adaptation of ukulele into the intro program. So I think again, it's a life's work. I am proud to say there are districts, I think the fall of 2019, which is the last time there was a traditional school year, something like 90% of the U.S. public school system had access to music and arts programs. Now, was it equal? No. Did it have all the robustness of a Texas marching band, high school? No. So it's all across the board. There's 16,000 school districts in this country, and not one of them are alike. But the idea that there are dedicated people, California's got a ballot initiative coming up this fall to put a bunch more money into arts education, which is everything. Again, theater, dance, music, the visual arts. I think all of that is related. We just, the bill that President Biden signed last week increased by another, it's like $1.3 billion for a title. It's called Title 1.4, I think it is. That's music and arts, because of our lobbying, has been deemed a core subject alongside math, science, and reading, but it wasn't getting funded that way. So there's a title within the federal education bill that just got funded by President Biden that's going to dump, again, billions more into music education. And our role with music educators is to help them understand those funds are available, tap into them, and make sure that they're utilized to the way that really restores programs in a very sustainable way. Right now, there's a lot of COVID relief money flying around, which is crazy. Again, an industry like ours needs a voice, and that's NAMM, to be able to go to Washington, go to Sacramento State House. None of us can do that individually. It takes an association. That's why every industry has an association. Isn't that one company can do any of that by themselves, no matter how good they are. You got to work collectively. But the idea that working collectively to say there's this relief money that went into the schools, and one of the things was how to get school programs back safely, because band and orchestra programs spread aerosols. And in the era of COVID, that was really, that was one like, no choral programs. So we funded a study that really looked at aerosol spread in an orchestra band room and then how to mitigate it. And that study was taken to school boards around the country. And the music program said, look, here's how we're going to mitigate aerosol spread, because this study's been published. And the school boards all said, good, go for it. Here's the mitigation money that came from the COVID relief funds. And I got another email this morning. These are schools that had programs restored because of that aerosol study. So again, it's all of us working together to try and move this forward. Obviously, some places are way ahead of others. And in my lifetime, this work will not be done. But as an industry working together, and I mean that whole ecosystem, artists, music educators, the industry itself of gear, all of us have a role in it. And there's never going to be enough, right? Boys and Girls Club. I saw Bezos' wife gave a bunch of money yesterday to the Boys and Girls Club around the country. There's more music being made in Boys and Girls Club around the country. I fund one back from my hometown in East Aurora, the music program there. After school is alive and well. And so there's just pockets. And I think we have got to find them. We got to celebrate them, and we've got to replicate them where we can.
I want to thank you so much for all of the great work that NAMM is doing around the country and around the world, because we got to keep music alive no matter what. Yeah,
the world needs it now more than it's always needed. And, why do we make music? I don't know if any of your listeners ever stop and wonder why has every society since the dawn of human recorded history made music? Ever think about that?
It is the unanswered question.
Yeah. So I think it's actually biological. I mean, a lot of us got into music, obviously to be hip and cool and all that. I mean, and maybe it's part of natural selection, who knows, but there's something biological about music making and communal. The idea of drumming in particular was about societies working more collectively together. And those that did work together more collectively tended to survive, and be able to withstand the rigors of the early days. But yeah, drumming in particular, I think is actually a community building language. So I don't know. Put it this way, whoever solves that question is probably not going to be me, but it's a compelling question. Why do we all make music or have the desire to, or the love of music? And again, since, I don't know, don't quote me on the actual year, but the dawn of recorded history, I think is somewhere around 6,000 years ago. They were making music then. And I suspect it was even before then, but just no one wrote it down.
Joe, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate your time.
Good luck with everything. Appreciate the opportunity.
The Business Side of Music is the creation of Tom Sabella and Tracy Snow and is produced by Bob Bender. The Business Side of Music is recorded at Music Dog Studios in Nashville, Tennessee. Production sound designed by Keith Stark. Voiceover and promo by Lisa Fuson.